They were not large, but the community itself was not large and estimated to be between 25 to 50 people.
Inside, each hut had its own hearth where food was cooked on hot stones. On the floor, they left the fragments that today provide clues to their daily life. Pieces of flint, shavings of bone, burnt seeds stayed in the ashes of the fire. They threw the remains of their food on the ground. To archaeologists, this refuse is a mine of information. It shows just what wild game they were able to catch. Their hunting expeditions were still vital to their diet.
They are very eclectic foragers and hunters. Everything virtually that ran, swam, crawled or flew was eaten. So we've got gazelle, which was the mainstay generally of the Natufian repertoire. We've got aurochs, or extinct wild cattle, goat. We have wolf, fox, crab, tortoise. We've got hare, cat, and then a whole range of birds.
While the Natufians would hunt anything, they were adept at catching large animals out on the range. They probably used the bola, with 3 stones connected by cords and thrown together, or the slingshot. Both were difficult to aim and throw accurately. They moved to the rhythm of the seasons and roamed for weeks at a time. Despite a hard life, they seem to have been physically fit.
They lived well, their teeth were good. They were often ground down a lot, and that was because of the amount of basalt ground, stone ground flour and other foods they were probably eating. They tended to have, like a lot of hunter-gatherers, a very physical lifestyle with signs of healed fractures, and this shows up in their skeleton.
Hunting was a dangerous way of life. They were vulnerable to injury, and their weapons were fragile. Their campsites show they worked constantly on repairs and making new tools. Like all Stone Age people, they relied on flint. By splintering different stones in the right way, they created an amazing range of specialized blades and axes. They had their own toolkits, which were precious and vital for survival.
We were digging out these houses in square metres, and every so often we'd come across an extraordinary set of tools just stacked up where they were, left 12,000 years ago. And it was so clustered, it looked as if it had been in some kind of bag, which had been placed down there and never picked up again.
In the bag were 7 smooth, round river stones, almost certainly for use in a slingshot. A piece of flint, and struck from it, a group of small spear blades called lunets. Some gazelle toe bones, raw materials for more tools and artworks, and a sickle, its handle made from antler horn, fitted with rose-coloured flint. Here, the Natufian hunter takes technology one step further. This sickle's double-bladed for added efficiency.
It was all of the things that characterised the Natufian way of hunting and gathering. The sickle for harvesting, the spearheads for hunting, the smooth stones, possibly sling stones, and then their preoccupation with ornaments made from the gazelle toe bones, which they made into beads.
The Natufians had a unique feeling for decoration. They loved carving and carefully shaped their mortars and pestles. It's now that archaeologists find them in numbers far greater than ever before. They may have traded their carvings for the hard mortar stone.
These have had to be made out of a single large block of basalt. You can see the shape, almost perfectly circular, lovely beveled rims, beautiful footed stands, and even thicknesses of the vessels all the way through. There's been many hours of careful work put into producing these things, and doing so to, once again, a high aesthetic standard that goes perhaps beyond the immediate needs of a piece of rock to pound a pestle into to grind up seeds.
The most amazing thing about these mortars is their sheer size. They were far too heavy to carry around. We know the Natufians left them year after year at their own hearths. They are beginning to settle down near their own food supply. These early varieties of grain did not allow them to turn the flour into bread. Instead, a coarse biscuit combined different grains. A kind of pancake was the ancestor of today's flatbread. Skilled processing meant their teeth were not worn away by the coarse grain. They seem to have been clever about storage, although all the evidence has decayed. We know hollow gourds grew in the area, and they understood how to tan leather. The stored food must have been a treasure. It was a chance to share and celebrate and keep the clan together. It meant they could plan ahead and rely on the future. But stored grain was not enough to guarantee survival. The Natufians needed to combine their grain with seasonal foods like berries and nuts. They were instinctively creating a balanced diet. Fruit and vegetables with meat and starch. Inadvertently, they were directing the future evolution of plants, choosing the best, the biggest, the sweetest to carry home. It was the seeds of these carefully selected foods that ended up in the rubbish pile. The refuse was moist and organically rich, rather like a garden bed. The plants would sprout and cross-pollinate to create a more useful strain. These were the first experimental gardens. The Natufians were on the move all the time. In many ways, they had the best of the settled and the nomadic. We know from hunter-gatherers still living today in Africa and Australia that the lifestyle created leisure.